start pulling the sing first.
Well, you should start singing then.
Hallelujah.
Are we on? All right. Well, after the annual meeting this year, we were asked by several church members to discuss our church investments and how we manage them and how we designate or use the funds. So Bowden and myself and Dave Hinckley, and then conversation with Liz Bruce and Bruce Varney, and maybe somebody else, we took about 3 hours of time. And we went through and looked at the basically 18 or so funds that we have that have been with our church for more than I've been here, and I've been here, what, 45 plus years. And we decided that we're not going to go through the same 2.5-hour presentation today. We boiled it down to what I consider these 4 basic groups of cash or investments. So the first one is pretty well known by you folks, designated, where the giver of the money has told us what to use the money for. And so be it. So we do that. An example of that would be scholarship accounts. We've got them on Margaret Sawyer, Russell Coburn, we have a Silva, maybe a couple others. And we don't have any choices of what to use the interest and dividends from. So we use it for that. And members of the church and friends do donate those to that over the years. Another one we have is what we're going to talk about as special designated. The first one, number 1, is not income producing also. So the second one is not income producing. Church members and friends make donations and available to fund items of memorial significance. And those monies are seldom used. And we'll talk about that when I pass the ball to Bo. The third one is income producing. Again, out of those 18 or so funds or investments, some of those, and I can't tell you why, have been put into a group where we take the dividends and bring those over to the church checkbook for income. And we try to leave the capital gains in each account to hedge off inflation. So the funds will grow slowly over time, hopefully to hedge inflation. And the fourth one, which you've probably heard of many times, capital reserve. Monies are moved into capital reserve from monies designated from our pledges and offerings or other accounts to keep it simple. And mainly used for church and parish house maintenance. So one of those, a good example would be the roofing and chimney repairs that we'll be doing in the next couple of months. So I've asked Bowden to try to keep things simple. If we get too deep into the minutiae, we're going to be here for an hour plus. But again, these are 4 simple ones: designated, special designated, income producing, and capital reserve. Bowden, you're on.
Yes.
Do you want me to remove this screen so you can put this up?
Well,
Or?
I'm going to need to plug it into my laptop.
Okay.
Is it just an HDMI?
Yeah.
Or should I move it?
You're going to need to move.
So what we'll be doing today is we'll let Bowden go through his presentation. I've asked him to keep it on track and short, succinct, and then we'll take some questions. We go through this, it seems like every 10 or so years, to describe the funds, how they're invested, how we manage them, and how we use them. And like I said, it took us 2.5 hours to go through all of this and whittle it down to a presentation worthy of a short amount of time, but still get through.
I've enjoyed the last 10 of these meetings.
You have?
It's
That
up-
means
it's
you've been
up
here
more.
at least 100
It's up.
years. All right.
Okay.
Bowden, go ahead.
I don't have a remote pointer, so I'm going to need to walk back and forth to the spreadsheet, so I apologize for that.
You're doing a great job.
So, I just flashed this up here so that you can understand. I've got 2 tabs, designated and undesignated. And then you'll see some breakdown of categories and undesignated. So all of these funds, now the endowment can be a little bit confusing because almost 17% of the endowment is actually plugged into some of the smaller designated funds, but they're invested in the endowment account instead of having a separate account on its own. So that's why I have it in both places. So I crossed out the undesignated general use piece, and you can see that 17% of it is used for moving dollars. Oh,
There you go, remote one.
oh, I see it here, red button.
Red button in the middle. Yep. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
I'm so high tech, I keep saying. So, anyway, I'm not going to belabor these, but I did want to point out a couple of things. One, if you look at this number right here, that's the amount, total amount of the funds that are actually designated. So I used to say that most of our funds are undesignated, but actually the truth is, it's a very substantial portion, 41% is actually designated. And a lot of this has to do with, look at the amount of money that's been built up on the scholarships. So we've been given some very generous scholarships. I remember when I first came to the church, it was a couple $100
Yeah.
a year. Now we're giving thousands. It makes a big difference for the children. I know that both my children benefit from it as well.
And they need it more now than they used to.
Well, right, yeah, things are very expensive. So all of these, if we're in search of what's happening with these funds or what can we control, these are really off the table. So if anybody's interested in more about what we do with these funds, I'd be glad to talk to you about it at length at a later date. But in a sense, all of these, they have a purpose. The chimes, the organ fund, we dip into those those are intended for the organ, it's intended for maintenance on the organ and some musical events, and then on the chimes, it's for maintaining the chimes. So those are tied to that, and we do tap those funds when we need that, if we can. So I'm going to take you over to the undesignated. By the way, I do have some copies of our annual report, and in there, I got all of these numbers. This 2024 balance will match for you what you see in the investment report. I'm trying to remember what page number it's on.
29.
29. So, and you'll see down here, I have some totals. So, I don't want to make this confusing, so I'll try to make this as simple as possible. The total is of what's actually in investments is $1,395,106. There's also $77,000 that's in this pastor's fund, so I'm going to explain that in a minute. But let me talk about, remember how Carl had broken down what we do with these different funds. So as you can see here, I've kept everything crossed out except for the undesignated general use. On a monthly basis, we draw income, and what I did is, this is the actual amount total for the endowment, and then this is the amount that's actually available for income producing. And we take about, all told, we take about, if you sum all of this up, we take about 4% a year in income. So as you can see, $22,000 a year come from these three funds and are fed into as income for us. It's very important. It's almost as significant as the cell tower.
Okay.
So if you think about it, our expenses are roughly $200,000, but our pledge income is only $120,000. So we've got to get the other 40% from somewhere else, right?
And one thing to remember there, if we take monies out of the income-producing investments, then we do, in fact, reduce the principal and reduce the amount coming in as income. So we're looking at a balance between not spending and keeping that constant for income. We'd be tempted, if we draw from that, to ask for more money through pledges and offerings. We don't necessarily want to do that.
So it's important that we keep these funds the way they are and that we try to top up a little bit from the capital gains because inflation is a fact of life as well. Now, we also have the feed to the capital reserve. So the capital reserve was started actually when we started using this started getting income from the cell tower. And its primary feed used to be that we would take a quarter of the cell tower income and put it into the capital reserve. Over time, when we had all of our budgetary problems, we stopped that practice. But fortunately, we have two funds, both tied to the Goss family, that are designated, in a sense, to feed money to care for the buildings. So you can see that this column is for the income producing we just talked about. This column is the feeds to the capital reserve. So you can see we put $4,627 in last year from these two Goss funds into the capital reserve. And here it's labeled as capital repair on the investment sheet, if you see that. So we only draw from it when there's an allocation. And currently we have $46,655. We had quite a bit more before we did the solar project. We borrowed about $60,000. Well, we borrowed $82,000 originally, but we put quite a bit of it back. So we still have to return those funds from the solar project over time. Our hope was to get a little more money back from donations, and they may come over time. But in the end, our solution is going to be, right now, we're expecting, this is not for sure, but we're expecting about $6,000 a year excess cash from generating electricity. We're generating much more electricity than we're using. So we have a big benefit right away of helping us in operations because it's saving us the $6,000 a year that we're spending on electricity, right? Now we're expecting another $6,000. In the first 11 years or so, we intend to put $4,000 of that back into the capital reserve every year to pay off what we borrow. And then we're going to take $2,000 of it and use it for income to reduce our budget deficit. So once we've paid the capital reserve back, then anything we gather from there is gravy forward.
Now, a lot of the monies we have in the capital reserve now, we're putting some of that toward roofing repairs and chimney repairs on the parish house. So we have estimates of around $27,000. Liz, Bruce, and Skip are working on quotations, and we'll work that through in the next few weeks, hopefully.
27 to 40.
27 to 40, okay. And we're not going to spend 40.
23.
Well, we're
23 now, 7 is a low one, but we don't think it's complete.
well, I mean, that's the thing. Things are expensive. So part of the other feed that we had for the capital reserve, and why we had so much money in it, is we had a very successful capital campaign about 10 or 12 years ago. And whatever leftover money was there, and we actually had earmarked to do the roofs then, but we didn't want to just replace good shingle just to replace it. So we waited. Now we've kind of waited to the point where it has to be done. So that's, and the reason that we feed everything into one fund is so we can prioritize the projects that are absolutely critical, right? So that there's not competing methods, where there's always just one common sense thread. So the one thing that we did discover in this analysis was that the memorial gifts doesn't really have an outlay.
So if I can clarify that, it's not part of the income producing investments. It's not, it's sort of special designated where we don't want to spend that money for maintenance and other items. It should be for memorial significant projects. But again, it's not part of our investments. It's not part of our income stream.
It's not part of our income, it's part of our investments, but it's not, we don't have a place for it. We don't use it for income. We don't feed it to the capital reserve. We have used it for a lot of the smaller projects that we've had. What's interesting is, you know, I never really paid, I hate to say it, I'm the treasurer, I never really paid attention to that particular fund, right? Since 2017, this fund has doubled Oh, personal remark. This fund is doubled from about $20,000 to almost $40,000. And we need to double check with, we're going through the rest, we've talked to Bruce and others to make sure that we understand what's actually needs to be done with these funds, but I don't see any obstacle to us being able to use this for our fire alarm project. It'll be a-
Some of it. Some of it.
Some of it. What we're talking about doing is potentially taking 20,000 and leaving the other 20,000 there as where we started in 2017. One of the big dangers we have right at this moment is what's happening on Wall Street. In fact, we probably should have pulled the pin on some of this stuff a few weeks ago. Because what I'm worried about is I have no idea what this number is anymore. But I assume it dropped by about 10%. And I'm afraid that that may be true, although these are more balanced funds, so we may not have taken it as serious of a hit.
It's a painful hit that it's taken, but it's not as frightening as it might seem. And it was a tantrum, so we'll see what's
Well,
going on.
yeah, right now, we're kind of gonna ride it out for a few weeks to see what actually happens. And hopefully some of this is gonna come back. So, you know, the danger is if the night keeps falling, right? Then we're gonna have to think again, just like every family thinks again about what they're spending money on, right? We may have to put some things off.
Why we have an investment committee.
Right. So, anyway, the pastor's fund. So, when we did the capital campaign, Alex agreed to stay on through the entire campaign. We had him as a pastor for 5 years. In that time, we saved $120,000 in expenses because we weren't paying for a full-time pastor, even though we were getting
Full-time pastor.
full-time pastor service, so we're very grateful for that. And over the,
I think it'll
we
come
just
back.
need to jiggle that a little bit.
And is this your travel program?
I'm done.
Oh, is that your castle?
Yeah,
There we go.
I wish. I've always dreamed of hitting the lottery and putting a couple $1 million in the pastor's fund, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But then we get everybody lazy. I don't know.
Yes, we don't want to do that.
So, anyway, over time, we spent down about $40,000 out of that fund over the past 8 years to supplement. And then there was a time where we made a decision, this is silly, it's sitting in the savings account getting 0% on all this money. So we moved it into investments, although it stayed on our balance sheet. And it makes it a lot easier for the trustees and the treasurer to look into the business, because we don't come hat in hand begging for a $5,000 tranche out of endowment or something like that. So that's basically the purpose of this fund, and why it's called the pastor's fund. It's our fund to be able to pay the shortfall that we have in our budget. Yes?
Bring your mic up.
Oh, that, sorry.
So
So,
everything we're talking about here is on the 2025 budget that we approved. So everything we're doing here is looking to this next year. And of course, 2026 would be a new budget, a new program as directed by the church.
so that's basically our funds. I mean, it's very straightforward. These are these account numbers are the account numbers that we have in Edward Jones. These are the names of the accounts. Shows you how we prune them and what we do to bring in our income. So the one good thing out of this entire exercise was we did find a block of money that we could use for the. We found a block of money that we could use for the fire fund, for the fire alarm. So right now, let's see. As of February, we had
It's in between.
We had $3,820. I don't know what we have in the fund now.
It's another 5,000 on top of that, plus I think there's a few other donations, so you're looking close to $10,000.
Close to 10,000.
You should
So-
have 25 coming from T-Mobile.
Well, yes, and there's another 2,500 from T-Mobile, that also has arrived.
Right, so we're thinking we've got about 12,500 now. We have $20,000 that we can take from memorial gifts. Obviously, we have to go to the Memorial Gifts Committee and get approval for that. So that's 32,500. Now, we're hopeful. We're hopeful because it's possible that we can spend less than, say, the 50,000. We don't know yet. Part of it has to do with the Annunciator. I don't know if any of you have heard that, but that there's, in conversations that Skip and Carl and others have had with the fire department, the purpose to the Annunciator was that you would then, if you had a building with a lot of small rooms, there would be a voice activated in every single room to tell people to leave.
Every room would have a box on the wall. It would have a noisemaker, like a buzzing noise or whatever. It would have a strobe for visual detection, and it would have a speaker that would speak out a voice from the computer or whatever, saying to evacuate or whatever. So if we can eliminate that voice part of the system, we've got the potential
To
to
save.
save about 10,000. Locally, the fire chief and his deputy have approved that. The people at the state level have approved it, but it has to go through the board. It does the state board, right?
The state level has not approved it.
Right,
Chief and the deputy chief support us.
okay.
The variance has been submitted, so we're waiting for them. I think they want to come down and do a visit, walk through. When they see it's one large room,
Right, and if you've ever been in one of these alarms and you've heard the piercing shriek that's coming, you want to leave the building because you can't hear it, you're so faint. So, and then the strobe lights and everything else, so I think that that's certainly more than adequate, but again, we don't make those decisions.
we're hoping we can save 10
Yeah,
grand.
we're hoping to
So
save
that
10 grand.
makes it- We're in striking range.
So we're really within striking range.
Yeah, it's a variance to the code that's hard written and approved at the state level, so we have to have a committee actually go through and approve that.
So that's my pitch. I tried to keep it as short and sweet as possible, but yeah, that's the way our flows work. Do we have any questions?
I feel like we're the church at Ephesus. We're doing well.
You know, we've had a lot of really caring people
Yeah.
over the past 200 years make contributions to this church. And, that's how it's happened.
Yeah. We're still talking to us.
So again, are there any questions that we can clarify right now? And of course, we'll keep you up to date on monies that do get designated and brought in as gifts from other trusts or funds, but we found that little golden egg that as long as we have a
No.
project of memorial significance, we can use, and we should use that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.